Long ago, nestled in a serene and picturesque hamlet called Kuru, life moved at a peaceful rhythm. The village, cocooned by towering, verdant trees, thrived on its unique customs and principles. Among these, one tradition stood paramount. Every young woman was expected to preserve her virtue, remaining untouched until marriage. This rule was the cornerstone of Kuru's identity, a mark of pride that distinguished its people from others. Families revered this custom, often boasting about their daughters' purity, saying, "In Kuru, our daughters are treasures, untainted and noble." It was a source of immense honor, symbolizing proper upbringing and adherence to cherished traditions. Yet fate is rarely predictable. One fateful day, an ominous calamity swept over the village, casting a shadow of despair. The elders, in their wisdom, sought divine guidance and discovered a startling revelation. Only a truly virtuous maiden could lift the curse. To sweeten the task, the gods promised that the chosen girl, who would offer herself for the sacred sacrifice, would wed the royal prince, and her family would be showered with riches and gifts. This royal alliance was too grand an opportunity to ignore, and villagers eagerly presented their daughters at the palace gates, convinced of their daughter's virtue and determined to seize this once-in-a-lifetime blessing. As the crowd gathered, the priest Akaj emerged carrying a grand earthen vessel. In a solemn voice he explained, "Within this pot lies a divine necklace, imbued with celestial power. Only the hands of a pure maiden can retrieve it. This is the god's trial to unveil the worthy one among you." Excitement mingled with anxiety as the girls lined up, each taking her turn to plunge her hand into the mysterious vessel. Their parents stood confidently, certain of the outcome. One by one, the girls stepped forward. The first, trembling but hopeful, reached in, only to withdraw empty-handed. The second girl followed, and then the third, yet the result was the same. Nervous murmurs rippled through the crowd as the tension grew. When it was time for the chief's daughters, celebrated for their elegance and virtue, expectations soared. Yet shock gripped the assembly as the eldest, followed by her sisters, failed to retrieve the necklace. Even the youngest daughter, regarded as the epitome of grace, met the same fate. The atmosphere turned heavy with disbelief. How could this happen? How could no girl in Kuru, not even the chief's daughters, pass this sacred test? Whispers spread like wildfire, doubts creeping into every corner of the village. The elders exchanged worried glances, their faith in the community's traditions shaken. The unthinkable had occurred. The proud legacy of Kuru, its supposed purity, stood tarnished. Desperation turned to blame, and soon all eyes fell on a mysterious figure, SM, a newcomer from the city. The village, united in its suspicion, began pointing fingers at her. "She brought misfortune to our daughters," an elderly woman declared. "Our girls were once virtuous. Now look what she's done." Others joined in, accusing SM of introducing foreign habits that corrupted their sacred customs. But SM's story began much earlier. She had arrived in Kuru as a visitor, a young woman from the bustling city, whose striking beauty and confident demeanor instantly captured everyone's attention. Draped in vibrant, daring attire, SM carried herself with an air of sophistication that was foreign to the modest village. The men were mesmerized, whispering amongst themselves about her allure, while the young women gazed at her in admiration and envy. "I wish I could dress like her," one girl mused. "She looks so confident," added another, her voice tinged with longing. The girls' fascination with SM grew daily. She became their muse, a symbol of freedom and allure. But behind SM's dazzling facade lay a secret that would unravel the fabric of Kuru's society. She had discovered a way to turn her beauty into power. Men drawn to her charm offered gifts and money, but these tokens came at a cost. Isam, meeting these admirers in secret, traded her company for wealth, a concept far removed from Kuru's moral compass. The chief's daughter, Asabi, was the first to unravel Isam's secret. Intrigued by her constant stream of luxurious possessions, Asabi followed SM one evening and witnessed her clandestine meeting with a wealthy merchant. Stunned yet captivated, Asabi found herself drawn to this new way of life. The simplicity of village rules began to pale in comparison to the allure of gifts and attention. For the first time, Asabi questioned her upbringing, tempted by the possibilities SM had introduced. The following day, Asabi acted on her curiosity. She approached a young merchant who had long admired her and, mimicking SM's actions, agreed to meet him in secret. True to her expectations, he showered her with gifts and coins. For Asabi, it was a revelation. She felt empowered, special, and independent, feelings she had never experienced within the confines of Kuru's rigid traditions. "It's so simple," she thought, excitement coursing through her veins. "I can have everything I've ever wanted." In the heart of Kuru, a tale was quietly unraveling, altering the village's essence forever. Asabi, who had discovered the alluring secret of wealth through SM's actions, couldn't contain her excitement. She eagerly shared her newfound knowledge with her closest friends, speaking with a mixture of amazement and temptation. It's simple. Spend time with the men, and they shower you with gifts and money. At first, her friends were appalled, clinging to the moral teachings instilled in them since birth. However, curiosity is a powerful force, and soon it overtook their initial shock. They began to wonder if such a life of luxury could also be theirs. Slowly but surely, the influence spread. Inspired by SM's flamboyant confidence and the transformation they saw in Asabi, the girls started emulating their behavior. They adorned their faces with makeup and chose attire designed to captivate attention. Subtle at first, their shift became more pronounced. Whispers among them grew louder. If SM and Asabi can do it, why not us? It wasn't long before SM noticed the change sweeping through the village girls and seized the opportunity to expand her influence. She began coordinating clandestine meetings between the girls and the men. Acting as a broker of sorts, SM ensured a portion of the gifts and money was shared among the girls. "Trust me," she said with a sly smile. "I'll handle everything. Just be pleasant with them, and you'll be rewarded." The girls, entranced by the allure of attention and material goods, followed her lead without hesitation. The thrill of receiving fine clothes, jewelry, and coins made them forget the principles they had once upheld. The simple joys of their rural lives were replaced by the intoxicating rush of a secret life. But their indulgence didn't stop with materialism. It morphed into a hunger for validation. Soon the gifts were secondary to the feeling of importance they derived from the men's admiration. What began as isolated actions soon spiraled into a widespread phenomenon. A hidden culture emerged within Kuru, a secret society of young women who craved freedom from the constraints of their traditional upbringing. They lived dual lives, presenting themselves as obedient daughters during the day, while exploring their new identities in the shadows of the night. As the nights of secret meetings multiplied, the divide between the old and new ways grew deeper, unnoticed by the village elders who believed their daughters were still the paragons of virtue. However, change rarely goes unnoticed for long. Nature itself seemed to rebel against the disruption in Kuru. First, the vibrant greenery that surrounded the village began to fade. Trees shed their leaves prematurely, and crops withered in the fields. Livestock, once hardy and full of life, became frail and began dying mysteriously. Worst of all, the people of Kuru found themselves plagued by a strange illness that left them weak and desperate. Whispers of despair spread like wildfire, and fear gripped every household. With no explanation for the mounting calamities, the villagers turned to their spiritual leader, Akaj, an oracle revered for his connection to the divine. Gathering at his modest home, the elders relayed their concerns, their voices trembling with worry. Akaj sat in solemn silence, his eyes closed as if listening to a voice no one else could hear. When he finally spoke, his words struck terror into the hearts of the villagers. "The gods are displeased," he declared gravely. "They are angry because the purity we once held sacred has been defiled. Our traditions have been abandoned, and the village must pay a price. To restore balance, a great sacrifice must be made. 2 untouched maidens must deliver the offering to the sacred altar." The weight of his decree hung heavy in the room. For generations, Kuru had prided itself on the virtue of its daughters. Yet now the elders exchanged uneasy glances, their confidence shaken. Akaj's voice grew firmer as he added, "This sacrifice must be completed within 2 days. If not, the curse will intensify, and the village will face even greater suffering." The villagers dispersed, their hearts laden with uncertainty. The following morning, the town crier walked the streets, his bell echoing ominously as he announced the oracle's command. "All young maidens must gather at the palace. The gods demand a sacrifice." The call sent ripples of anxiety through every home. Families hurried to prepare their daughters, confident they had nothing to fear. Yet beneath the surface, unease simmered. When the appointed day arrived, the entire village congregated at the palace. Parents stood proudly by their daughters, convinced of their purity. But hidden among the crowd were stolen glances and nervous whispers. The secrecy of the girls' double lives was about to be tested in the most public and consequential way imaginable. In the grand hall of the palace, the weight of the moment hung heavy in the air as the villagers and their daughters awaited the virgin pot test. Akaj, with solemn authority, began the ritual. Each maiden stepped forward, their hands trembling with anticipation. Yet, one by one, every attempt failed. Not a single girl could retrieve the sacred necklace from the pot. The verdict was undeniable. None of the maidens were virgins. A stunned silence filled the room, followed by gasps of disbelief and murmurs of shame. The once proud tradition of Kuru, upheld and revered for generations, had been shattered. SM's influence had corrupted the purity of every young woman in the village, transforming them into a reflection of her own choices. The oracle's voice, steady and grave, broke the suffocating silence. "The gods have seen all," he declared. Their anger is righteous, and their wrath cannot be ignored. Without the proper sacrifice, this curse will not be lifted. The villagers, gripped by despair, realized the gravity of their predicament. What they once took pride in was gone, leaving behind a deep sense of failure. The girls who had embodied their values and honor were now symbols of lost virtue. Panic and urgency consumed the village as they confronted the unthinkable. Finding two pure maidens to appease the gods would be far harder than they ever imagined. Blame turned swiftly to SM, the outsider who had brought her urban ways into their rural haven. The villagers viewed her as the root of their suffering. "She poisoned our daughters with her reckless behavior," the elders muttered, their faces twisted in anger and regret. SM's parents, living in the distant city, soon heard of the turmoil their daughter had caused. Her father, a man of strict principles, was furious. "We failed her," he said bitterly. "We should have been stricter, more disciplined." Her mother, who had always defended SM, was overwhelmed with guilt. "I let her have her way too often," she admitted tearfully. "Now she's brought shame upon us all." As the villagers' ire grew, SM became a pariah. Once admired for her beauty and confidence, she was now seen as the embodiment of everything that had gone wrong. The elders, desperate to restore balance and appease the gods, reached a decision. SM, they declared, would bear the burden of the sacrifice alone. Her actions had brought calamity, and it was her responsibility to make amends. When the day of reckoning arrived, SM stood before the gathered villagers, her heart heavy with regret and fear. Her parents watched helplessly, unable to shield her from the consequences of her choices. Akaj handed her a pot filled with offerings for the gods. "You must take this to the sacred altar in the forest," he said solemnly. "Alone, this is your burden to bear." Balancing the heavy pot on her head, SM began her journey. She walked through the village, enduring the scornful gazes and hushed whispers of the people who once admired her. As she entered the dense forest, the path grew darker and more treacherous. For 2 days she traveled without rest, her feet blistered and her spirit weighed down. Each step was a reminder of the pain she had caused, not just to herself, but to the entire community. During her journey, SM reflected deeply on her actions. She thought of the admiration she had once reveled in, the gifts she had received, and the influence she had wielded over the village girls. What had seemed like empowerment now felt hollow and destructive. Her choices had not only led her astray, but had also dismantled the very values that had kept Kuru strong and united. Tears streamed down her face as she pressed on, the enormity of her mistakes pressing on her heart. She felt profound remorse, not only for the suffering she had caused, but also for the trust she had betrayed. At last, she reached the sacred altar, nestled deep within the forest. Exhausted and broken, SM placed the pot on the altar and knelt before it. She prayed fervently, asking the gods for forgiveness and pleading for peace to return to Kuru. As she rose, a sense of calm washed over her. Though uncertain of what awaited her, she knew she would face it with courage. Her journey was not just physical. It was a transformative path of repentance and realization. She had lost much, but hoped her actions could now begin to heal the wounds she had inflicted on her people. When SM returned to the village, the air felt different. The plants, once withered, showed signs of revival. The animals, previously sick and dying, began to recover. The curse had been lifted. Yet, the villagers' resentment remained. The elders, standing before the crowd, spoke gravely. "The gods have accepted the sacrifice," Akaj announced. "The curse is gone, but SM must atone for her actions." The punishment was clear. SM would remain in the village for 12 years, barred from leaving. During this time, she would bear the responsibility of delivering all offerings to the gods, ensuring the village's connection to the divine was maintained. As the villagers murmured in mixed relief and anger, SM stood quietly, accepting her fate. Though her journey of atonement had only just begun, she carried a newfound understanding of the values she had once disregarded. Her story, once a tale of rebellion and destruction, had become one of redemption and responsibility, offering a glimmer of hope for Kuru's future. The villagers exhaled in collective relief as the curse lifted, but a shadow of bitterness lingered toward SM. Her punishment was swift and definitive. She was exiled to a small hut near the temple, separated from the heart of Kuru, where life resumed its course. In her isolation, SM lived as an outcast, fulfilling her duties at the temple. Each day she offered sacrifices and maintained the sacred space, her life now a cycle of quiet penance. Once a vibrant and spirited young woman, she had become a figure of solitude, burdened by the weight of her past choices and their impact on others. The villagers, on the other hand, turned inward, determined to rebuild and strengthen their cultural fabric. The elders enacted strict measures to prevent the recurrence of such disruption. Outsiders, especially those from the city, were banned from entering Kuru, an act they believed would safeguard their traditions. Parents redoubled their efforts to instill the values of purity and respect in their children, weaving cautionary tales into their lessons. Chief among these stories was Esm's, retold as a warning to future generations. "The girl from the city brought chaos to our village," they would say, because she forgot the importance of tradition and honor. For Esm, life in isolation was a painful journey of reflection and transformation. The once proud girl who had reveled in admiration and material wealth now faced the harsh reality of her actions. Every sunrise was a reminder of the pain she had caused, both to herself and the village. Her punishment was more than physical exile. It was a spiritual and emotional awakening. Slowly, Esm began to understand the depth of her mistakes. She realized that true worth didn't lie in external beauty or fleeting admiration, but in integrity, humility, and respect for her roots. Over the 12 long years of her isolation, Esm sought redemption in her solitude. She embraced her duties with sincerity, hoping that her efforts might one day restore a semblance of dignity to her name. Though the villagers kept their distance, some observed her quiet transformation from afar. The vibrant girl who once captivated Kuru had become a symbol of caution and change, her life a living testament to the importance of cultural values and wise choices. Meanwhile, the village began to heal. Time softened the scars left by the curse, and Kuru's traditions flourished once more. The elders ensured that their cultural values were preserved, passing down stories that emphasized the importance of humility and respect. Esm's tale became an enduring part of their oral history, told and retold to guide the younger generations. For the children of Kuru, it was a lesson about the dangers of straying from the path of honor and the strength of a community rooted in its heritage. As the years passed, Esm's name faded into memory, but her story lived on as a moral compass for Kuru. The village thrived, stronger than before, and its people carried forward the lessons learned from the events that had once threatened their unity. Esm's journey was a tragic one, yet it became a cornerstone of Kuru's collective wisdom, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, a community's strength lies in its shared values and traditions. Thank you for watching this story. If you found it engaging, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. What lesson did you take away from Esm's journey? And if you'd like to hear more captivating tales like this, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring these meaningful stories to life. Thank you.